I got my 5 top takes coming out of a very interesting and busy Sunday in the NFL yesterday, and then we'll hear from the guys on what theirs were.
Number 5.
The Bills are in trouble. They had played the easiest schedule in the NFL, and when they've stepped up in class, they've gotten punched in the face. And Rex Ryan, I thought, made a great point with us on TV this morning. The Bills are good when you're trying to finesse them. Your finesse teams struggle with the Bills. But when they've played good, physical opponents this year, they've gotten smashed. The Colts just beat them senseless yesterday. That game was not as close as the final score sounded, and the final score was like 4 touchdowns. And Jonathan Taylor ran through them, not around them. He ran through them. And the most physical player on the Bills' offense is their quarterback. So I think the Bills are in legitimate trouble. That's a team that a month ago I would have bet you for sure was going to the Super Bowl. And I don't think it at all anymore. So I'm really surprised by what has happened. And they have no time, no rest for the weary. They got to turn around and play at New Orleans on Thursday night. Thursday night road games are not easy in the NFL. New Orleans is a good run defense, although obviously the Eagles ran over them yesterday. Then the Bills get the Patriots. Then they're at Tampa. They've got Carolina, the Patriots again. This is not going to be an easy stroll for the Bills. I still believe they will make it to the playoffs. I'm not sure they're going to win the division. And I no longer look at them as the favorite in the AFC, which I was certain that they were.
Number 4.
Now, we mentioned the Eagles. The Eagles are who we thought they were. And if you listen to this show, this was one of the first places anyone was talking about it. Before anybody was telling you the Eagles are for real, Hembo was telling it to you. Because he's got 2 things going for him. 1, he lives and dies with the Eagles. 2, he's paying attention to all these numbers. The Eagles, and I'm going to let him talk about it coming up in just a few minutes. But the Eagles have run for 870 yards in their last 4 games. They're 3-1 in their last 4. Their one loss was a tough loss against the Chargers. The Eagles will not be on an airplane again the rest of this season. They have, I believe, still the easiest schedule remaining. The Eagles are going to go to the playoffs, and their future is so bright. To say they got to wear shades is not enough. What do you do when it's brighter than that? They have to avoid it like a solar eclipse. Like you can't even look at them. Their future is so bright, and we'll explain why. But the Eagles are looking very, very good. My takes.
Number 3.
If Aaron Rodgers was on the Vikings, they would never lose a game. Aaron Rodgers was so ridiculously good. This is a guy who has not practiced between the COVID and the toe and everything else. He has not practiced in basically a month. And he goes out there with a bad toe, whatever exactly it is that's wrong with his toe. He was unreal yesterday. Did you watch him play yesterday? Like it is a thing of beauty to watch that man throw a football. I've been watching the game my whole life. So I go back to the mid-'70s. The first great quarterbacks I remember watching were Terry Bradshaw, Roger Staubach, Ken Stabler, that era of football, all the way through. And I would say the only person who I think might have been more just purely beautiful to watch throw a football was Dan Marino. But what Marino didn't do was all the stuff that Rodgers adds to it. Like, Marino just stood back there. He had this incredibly quick release, and it was, you've never seen a person more technically perfect. It's like a pitcher with great mechanics. But Rodgers, off-platform, running right, running left, just flinging it with his wrist 40 yards into a like he could hit a nickel. If you threw a nickel up in the air, he would hit it. He's unreal. And Kirk Cousins tried as hard as he could to give that game away yesterday. He just couldn't do it. He threw 2 interceptions on that last drive, and the Packers just didn't catch either of them. One of them they didn't even touch. I don't know what the hell happened on that play. If you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. That ball on the left side that Thielen catches. The first one, which was picked, and then they overturned it on the replay. If the Vikings are so good offensively, their defense is okay. The quarterback is going to give a game away for them, and that's how they're not going to wind up winning and going deep in the playoffs. But Rodgers, I thought, was the best player on the field yesterday. That was, I thought, was my favorite game of the day to watch.
Number 2.
I blame Mike McCarthy for the Cowboys' loss yesterday more than anybody, and I'll give you 2 reasons. 1, did you watch the way he utilized, or should I say did not, his timeouts at the end of the first half? They had plenty of time at the end of the first half to try and go down there and get points. They had 2 timeouts left, and they will not use one. And so the clock is running and ticking, and I felt like the interception that Dak throws in the end zone on a play where CeeDee Lamb winds up getting a concussion, it's a bad throw, and I feel like at least part of it has to be it was rushed. They were rushing like crazy for no obvious reason. And then the other thing is they just refused to run the ball. And if you go back and look at Mike McCarthy's numbers when he was the coach of the Packers, they never ran the ball. What was our stat that we had? Did they have the fewest rushing attempts in the NFL or something during his tenure?
Yeah, over that time. And yesterday, the Cowboys averaged more yards per run attempt than they averaged per pass attempt, which is super rare in the NFL, and they only ran the ball 16 times in the whole game.
He just won't run it.
Yeah.
And I know he's theoretically turned the reins over to Kellen Moore, but he's the coach of the team. And so I thought those two things were huge factors in that game. They're going to get points at the end of that first half. And if they do, I think the game is totally different. And then, I thought Troy Aikman was going to jump out of the booth. He was so frustrated with the way they were just refusing to try and run the ball. So when you're looking at all the variety of reasons why the Cowboys lost yesterday, I would throw the coach's name into it.
Number one.
And number one is, I think that the Bears might make a coaching change this week. If they lose to Detroit on Thanksgiving, and I think they will, then I think that the fans who were chanting "Fire Nagy" at Soldier Field yesterday are going to get their wish. That game set back pro football 50 years. Do you remember the game that the Broncos played last year when they had no healthy quarterbacks? And I forget his name, but they played with a wide receiver at quarterback.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. That was a game that you could have spent. They could have played like 5 quarters, 8 quarters, and they were never going to score. That's what the Ravens were yesterday. And the fact that the Bears defense allowed them to go right down the field and score the winning touchdown at the end was hideous and embarrassing. But for them not to be able to mount enough offense to win that game yesterday was ridiculous. And the ultimate indictment of what is going on there.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.